Yo, what's up, y'all? Welcome to the Prison to Promise podcast. Today on Prison to Promise, we're honored to be joined by Bryan Widenhouse. He's an advocate, policy strategist, and someone who knows the long arc of incarceration from the inside out. Bryan was sentenced to life without parole as a teenager and spent more than 30 years incarcerated before being released. Since coming home, he's become a powerful voice in the movement to end extreme sentencing and create meaningful second chances, working nationally with families against mandatory minimums, i.e. FAM. Bryan brings both lived experience and policy insight to the table, reminding us that people are more than their worst moments, and that transformation is not a theory, it's real. I'm grateful to have this conversation today with the good brother, Bryan Widenhouse. You don't want to miss this conversation, so tune in. Now let's go. So, look, man, let's jump right in.
Okay, let's do this.
Yeah, like right off the muscle, because I mean we're talking, but I want folks who might tune in to know who you are, who I'm talking to, who is this giant on the mic with me.
I don't know about a giant, but so my name is Bryan Widenhouse, and I'm currently a state legislative affairs manager at FAM. FAM is a national nonprofit, nonpartisan sentencing reform organization, and this year will mark 35 years that we've been in existence. FAM, which is FAMM, originally stood for Families Against Mandatory Minimums. Um, we still kind of identify that, but we also lean more towards calling ourselves Families for Justice now because we have expanded from our original mission and charter
Mhm.
of pushing it back against mandatory minimum sentence to now focus more broadly on things like second look opportunities, compassionate release, and prison oversight. So much more bigger umbrella we work under now.
Dig it, dig it. And what makes you do this work, Bryan?
Well, I was somebody who went through the system, started at a very young age, did a lot of time. And as many people in similar situations know, you become your own advocate.
Mm-hmm.
You're stuck in prison and with no hope, no way out. You have to advocate for yourself and for what you believe in, what you want the system to be and become. And so I'm what's known as a juvenile lifer. I was given a life without parole sentence when I was 17. Obviously, in 2012, the U.S. Supreme Court outlawed mandatory life sentences for juveniles. They didn't make it retroactive until 2017, but that led my way to becoming parole eligible. And I was paroled in 2020.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
or 2019.
Yeah,
It was
that's
right. It was in
relatively recent.
Yeah, it was in November, so, but then the time and the activities that I did while I was incarcerated was a lot of leadership development, developing programs, trying to help my communities and fellow, people who were incarcerated with me to seek out redemption and better ourselves and give back and all these great things.
Mhm.
And after 31 years of incarceration and working on myself, I was able to successfully advocate for my parole. And then I used those skills that I learned shortly after to grab a spot on what's called the National Life Without Parole Leadership Council. It was just established under the Human Rights Watch, a big international organization, obviously. And the vision there was to take 13 formerly incarcerated lifers to progressively work towards the abolishment of life without parole sentences. So that kind of got my foot in the door, working, going to conferences, networking, meeting people, volunteering, using my voice, my experience, and connected with the FAM staff. And it was kind of like a very good relationship from day one. And when they had a position come open for a policy associate, they invited me to apply. And here I am. March will make 3 years that I've been with them. And yeah, I've grown from that policy associate to state legislative affairs manager, where I now oversee it could be 6 or 7 states. We're kind of refocusing our 2026 priority states. So I will manage anywhere from 6 to 7 states for policy.
And you said you guys do some work in North Carolina. Can you talk a little bit about that work?
Not much in the sense, as I just mentioned, I'll manage 6 or 7 states. So we have a policy team in
Mhm.
which each person oversees a handful of states. I do not manage the North Carolina portfolio directly, but I have seen some interesting things come out of the state. Myself, I will probably, we've kind of penciled that out. We haven't written it in ink yet, but for 2026, I will probably have California, Arizona, Iowa, Vermont, Maine, Louisiana, and Georgia.
Well, that's a lot. That's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. As I told you, we're doing some work out here to end solitary confinement, and I am
Mhm.
campaign manager for the Unlock the Box campaign here in North Carolina.
Nice.
But we are
Yeah.
also operating in 23 other states doing the same thing with the aim of making United States of America free of solitary confinement within its carceral spaces. But as you know, like everything dealing with that beast of a system, things are slow, and sometimes seem like they're not making any progress. But we push forward, you know. But
Yeah.
if I could, man, I know a little about your background. You just shared a little bit about your background, and what stood out for me, one of the many things that you said is, you spent a gang of time in prison from the time you were a teenager, damn near 3 decades, if I'm not mistaken. And so, like, how did that experience shape not only who you are today? This this fighter, this warrior for social justice and equality for people who are incarcerated. But how did that experience not only shape who you are today, but um, also how you now think about punishment and accountability and the possibility of transformation? If you could talk to that a little bit.
Yeah, that's a big question. So when I went in at 17, I took accountability for the crime I committed,
Mhm,
and I knew that I had to really honestly evaluate myself, my belief systems and how I came to commit such a terrible crime.
mhm,
And I did from the very onset. I committed myself to rehabilitating, educating myself, learning, growing, giving back every which way possible. And so it's a long process over 31 years.
mhm,
Um, it becomes a lifestyle, your personality after doing it so long. It's not a question of whether you get up in the morning and contemplate, well, should I do something good today? Once you just committed to that, it becomes second nature. You start to see the world through different eyes. You start to look for things, what is wrong in our communities? Why are things broken and how do we fix them?
mhm,
Instead of just having the blinders on and just keep walking around accepting the status quo. We saw as people who were given extreme sentences, life sentences, this is back in the late 80s, early 90s. We had this dream of one day that laws would change that would allow us to present ourselves to parole boards
mhm,
or clemency boards, whatever the situation may be, and show the growth that we've achieved. That wasn't a reality. And we knew to create that reality, we had to fix other things first.
mhm,
So one of the first things we started to do is people have this perception that, crime was out of control. So many people would go into prison for what we call the short timers, the short people serving shorter sentences, and they go home and come back. And we got tired of seeing them come back. So we started to develop programming to help them. So we got to help these guys become successful, get out and stay out. Because if they're not changing and being successful on the outside, they're never going to consider us
Right.
beyond there.
Yeah.
And so it took a long time, but we really put together some outstanding programming that we focused on those who were going home. Uh, One of the biggest avenues that I participated in is called the JCs, which stands for Junior Chamber of Commerce. We
Mhm.
all know the Chamber of Commerce is a leadership business development organization. And so we use that model, which teaches leadership skills to people through community service as the vehicle to teach. And so it was kind of, you know, dual benefit. You're developing leaders and serving your communities at the same time.
Yeah.
And so the chapter, um, I think about 13 years, we were the number one chapter in the nation. You know, our little 60 members inside of a small Louisiana prison was competing toe to toe with community organizations, like city chapters with 600 members.
Yeah.
And we were competing toe to toe and sometimes even outperforming them.
And that's amazing. Smaller numbers. I'm imagining you had way less resources. You're in confinement, but you're outperforming them. And I would think that's probably because your group in part was hungrier. They
Thank you.
and they knew what
Yes,
was at stake. That's
absolutely.
amazing. Yeah. And so you literally grew up in prison, man.
Yes.
That's amazing. And you began to make changes while in prison. And oftentimes people don't think that transformation inside these carceral spaces is possible. However, it seems that you and many others, myself included, have defied those odds. But what I'm thinking about is also some of the lessons you may have learned, along your way. What were some of those lessons, spoken or maybe unspoken, that uh, prison may have taught you about power or identity, and even human resilience that people on the outside maybe misunderstand or never even see?
Well, as you know as well as I do, prison can teach you a lot of different things. And to teach you some good things, it'll teach you some bad things. It'll teach you whatever you let it to teach you.
Mm.
And I think that the inspiration that we see so many times in different people is that in spite of this harsh, violent, negative environment that pits us against society, incarcerated versus staff. It's like the system is inherently designed to have us going at each other's throats and not growing. But there are people in so many places on the inside who shake off that mindset.
Yeah.
I was blessed to be at a camp where, let's be straight, this is Louisiana.
Mm.
Racism is prevalent.
Yes, sir.
Yes. I've seen people on the compound and on the yard who basically said, you know what? Screw this. This is dumb. And they threw off racism and they embraced each other.
Mm.
I've seen powerful transformation. I mentioned being in the JC, sir. I served as president for 5 years. When the membership elects the board, I get elected president. You have no say so on who the vice presidents are
Mhm.
and the other board members. And I remember one particular year, um, to be honest, they elected this guy. He was from, commonly referred to as a project, had
Mhm.
a little bit of a gangbanger background.
Mhm.
And another person that was elected was a it was understood and known, not only just on the tattoos that he bore, that he came from a white supremacist background.
Mm.
And I remember at the start of the year, I'm like, "Oh boy, this." But
Oil and water.
But here we are, we're helping, we're raising money for children, we're doing these great community service projects, and in the course of that year, I remember it was maybe 6 months into it, we had just concluded a board meeting, we were talking about, some of the successes we had, looking forward to new project, new ideas, and these 2 guys literally, "Hey, bro," they got up and they hugged each other. They had grown to become friends, and it's not prison that does this, that allows people to shake off these root things that they were grown up and taught.
Yeah.
It's it's something different
Yeah.
because this can't you can't just replicate this. It has to happen, and it has to happen among people who choose for it to happen.
Mm.
I think that's the biggest thing. We put people into prison hoping for this outcome, and you can give them every program you want. And if they don't choose to change either or they better themselves, you're not gonna get that result. Vice versa, you can put people into prison and have no program and no nothing, and they say, "You know what? I'm gonna choose to change. I'm gonna choose." So I think the biggest thing that we have to do for our system is we have to incentivize that desire to change and to
Mm.
become, a valued person in the community.
Yeah. Yeah. That's dope, man. And I love what you're saying. Cause yeah, the system is not going to help us change. It might provide a couple of little pieces of resources, but yeah, the ultimate change comes from us making the decision and the determination that I'm going to do something different in this life. So you're
Right, and I think that's if you look across the country, people who are using their experience and going back in and really effectuating changes, is they really have a talent or the charisma to inspire that desire to change.
yeah, yeah. And speaking of change, and clearly, you talked about that working with fam. Um, I wonder if you could speak to maybe the concept or the ideal of what it is that maybe lawmakers tend to get wrong, particularly about people serving extreme sentences, and maybe what do they need to hear more clearly from people who've lived it? Because clearly they think that punishment, punishment, punishment is going to make people change or make people better. But I think they're missing the boat somewhere. I know, but I'd love for our listeners to hear from you.
Are they though? Do they need to be educated? I have a good friend, and I've seen this myself quite a bit, but he experienced this much more direct and profoundly. So he was advocating, just like most of us do in policy. And you come in and you speak to the lawmaker, and you have all your evidence, all your data.
Hmm.
You articulate exactly the power and the potential of redemption, that once a person serves so much time in prison, becomes rehabilitated, grows out of time, less likely to recidivate,
Hmm.
all these things that we all know and teach or try to advocate for. And you would think when a person hears all of it, they would say, "Oh, yeah, that's right. We should change things. This is not working."
Yeah.
Well, my friend who was laying it all out, and the politician put her hand on his arm and said, "Let me stop you right there." Says, "I know this. I know everything you're telling me, I know,
Hmm.
but I'm not going to vote for this bill because my constituents don't want this. They think that's being soft on crime."
Yeah.
And so I think the work doesn't lie so much in trying to convince the lawmakers. We have to show the public and the people the power of change,
Yeah.
um, the power of healing,
Yeah.
the idea that we can create a system that better achieves the goals that we want to have. Another colleague of mine said, laws don't get changed because of policy. Laws get changed because of movements.
Yeah.
And so we do. I think we have to spend more time contradicting what the public believes.
Mm.
You know, they believe everybody that goes to prison is a violent, dangerous criminal, and if we let them out, they're just going to commit more crimes. That's just not true.
Right.
I recently saw a news station put on social media just a story that, hey, the courts gave class action status to a lawsuit challenging prison conditions. You know, what's wrong with that? If prison conditions are unconstitutional or, you know, what rises to the level of unacceptable, unconstitutional, it is what it is. But if you read all the comments from people in the public,
Only imagine.
it was all negative.
Yeah.
It was all, oh, pampering the prisoners, hug a thug.
Yeah.
Uh, if you know, if you didn't want to do the time, you shouldn't have done the crime, and it's all negative.
Always.
And all it was the question is, as most people know, temperatures are rising. These prisons don't have climate control. They're nothing but metal and brick, and temperatures on the inside can get into the hundreds of degrees, well into, you know, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning. You're still laying in your bed, sweating, trying to fall asleep.
Yeah. Damn. Wet and sweat.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially these southern states, we know it. It's some
Mhm.
inhumane stuff that goes on.
And so the point I try to make is today, tomorrow, across the country, thousands of people are going to leave prison and go back home,
Mhm.
back into their communities.
Mhm.
Do we want them to come back out and commit violent crime? No. Do we want them to come back out and commit any crimes? No. Do we want them to come out and become a part of the community, get a job, pay their taxes, and contribute? Yes, that's what we want.
Mhm.
But we don't act like it.
Mm-mm. No, no.
We don't have a prison system that is geared to bringing us to that result. We don't have a post-incarceration system that promotes that idea and that hope. When
Mm.
when people get out, it's a struggle to find a job. It's a struggle to find a place to live. It's nothing but one obstacle after another that you have to overcome because of this public perception of people who have done time, who've committed crimes. You know, you're not accepted, you're not trusted, you're feared. And so therefore people don't want to hire you. People don't want to give you a place to live.
And the punishment is perpetual. You know, it's like, okay, I do my time, I pay my my penalty, so to speak. Um, Particularly for those of us who say yeah, and we realize that yeah, we did something wrong because we know there's some people who shouldn't have been put in prison. They should have been given treatment or something else and not prison. But for those of us still getting out of prison, I agree with you. Something needs to change. The punishment has to end once the sentence begins. And then, you know, to piggyback on what you're saying, when people get to prison, the punishment continues because of the horrible conditions that are happening in prison, the health conditions, the mental health conditions,
And it's
um,
getting worse, sadly.
and it's getting
And
worse.
I believe that your reentry plan, reentry programming should start day one.
Yes, sir.
Too often we put and maybe in some places it is starting to change, but my experience is they put you in prison, wherever it's 1 year, 10 years, or 50 years,
Hmm.
and you just there.
Yep.
And then when you get a year, 6 months, 90 days short, all of a sudden decide you, hey, take this reentry class
Right.
that, this is how you balance a checkbook. And so they teach some crazy stuff. They got guys who've been incarcerated 30, 40, 50 years, don't have any kids, but they want to teach them parenting, how to change a diaper,
It's not
you know,
relevant.
or, yeah, okay, this is how you write a resume. And then if you've been incarcerated that long, and a lot of people don't have the greatest education backgrounds, you can't teach me in 30 minutes how to write a resume.
As you said, it should begin on day one. And it makes me think about when I go to the doctor with a issue, the doctor diagnoses me right there. And right there, they make a plan. So the plan
Yes.
has a course of attack, a course of remedy, a course of having favorable outcomes. And yeah, the doctor doesn't say, well, come back to me in 6 months and then we'll diagnose you and make a plan. And so,
Yeah.
to go alongside what you said, the reentry plan should start almost immediately once a person gets inside the system, but we know it doesn't work like that. These systems, as you and I know and many others know, are not necessarily built to make things better for us. I think they're created to keep us stuck, in or as a third class or fourth class citizen, never to regain our rights. And so people like you, people like me, we claw our ways through and get to a place where we can breathe. But there's more of us, as you know, who need to have the same opportunities. And then the other thing I'll say is, I think you'll agree with me 100%. If you don't, I think you'll be close to it. And that is that most of the people I've met, or many of the people I met behind the wall, were brilliant, were very capable, and sometimes much more brilliant and capable than those of us who are living in the free world. But because of circumstances dealing with their zip code or where they come from, or some other type of economic or social emotional challenges, they never had an opportunity to shine. But independent,
Right.
I've met the most brilliant people I've ever met in my life. And
People people have such potential,
yeah,
and you potential doesn't go anywhere without opportunity.
mhm.
Sometimes that
Movement.
opportunity, but also it takes, like I mentioned at the start, people have to have a desire to change. Some people can have an opportunity, but they don't believe in themselves yet. They've
Yeah.
been told all their life, you're no good, you're a piece of crap, you're worthless,
Yeah.
and they begin to believe that.
Yeah, so they have to work through all that garbage too a lot of times that
Yeah.
life has dumped on them, you know?
And so it takes a lot of people, to develop a sense of self-worth, self-confidence, and belief in themselves. Um, as a juvenile lifer, since the Supreme Court outlawed mandatory life sentence, we're probably coming up on 1,100 former juvenile lifers who have been released. And I live a little outside of Philadelphia. Philadelphia is considered ground zero. They probably have 10% of the cases. What this one city has 10% of the cases of the whole nation.
Wow, that's heavy, bro.
But I think last count I saw was it's been a while. It's in the hundreds of 20s
Mhm.
that they've been released.
Wow.
Now, in this group, you got a lot who are what we call just grinding.
Mhm.
They got a job, they go to work, they keep their nose clean, they pay their rent, they pay their bills. They're not like, which is I think is great. But amongst this group, I had the chance to advocate to our lieutenant governor and governor's policy staff
Mhm.
about some reentry ideas, but I wanted to share with them. I says, we always present to you these data and statistics, and we say like the recidivism rate among this group is 2%. And they're like, oh, that's great. And I said, let me take it a step further. Let me pull some of these cases out and highlight them for you.
Mhm.
There are three like myself. I'm on a national nonprofit. There are two others who work with the Campaign for Fair Sentencing of the Youth at doing phenomenal things. They got two who are working on state level organizations. One is a youth sentencing reentry project of Philadelphia, doing great things, mentoring the younger generation who's coming into contact. We have published authors, we have adjunct professors, we have a Pulitzer Prize winner,
Knowledge.
and these are former juvenile lifers in Philadelphia.
Mhm.
The capacity for people to achieve great things is there if given opportunity
Mhm.
and encouraged to do so.
Yeah.
I think these people chose to you know like I did, chose a path to always better, always give back, always strive, grow, create, and it has led them to where they are today. I don't think that the system was like, "Hey, let's teach you." Let's no, they did it in spite of the system.
Right.
So, but can you imagine if we had a system that was more geared towards encouraging positive growth, change, and community, as we call restorative justice?
Yeah. Yeah. Making things right, returning things back to the natural balance. That's
Yes.
what restorative is about, and we know that our prison systems are not about restorative. They're about destroying instead of restoring. In our last minutes coming up, we got just under 10 minutes left. Um, but I'm thinking about reentry. I'm thinking about freedom. I'm thinking about people who are in your situation as well as in my situation, or anyone who's getting out of prison after however long they've been in. But people oftentimes think that freedom is like, and I use that term freedom loosely, but they often think that release or freedom is the happy ending. But as we know, reentry is sometimes very challenging, and it's another level of fear and impediments. You know, but what I'm thinking about is for you or for other people who can hear from you, what has maybe reentry taught you about freedom? What has it taught you about responsibility as well as healing? And I'm asking a whole lot, so answer however you remember. But what is, and I'll restate it, what has reentry taught you about freedom, responsibility, and healing? And finally, how can systems do a better job supporting people who are coming home after decades in prison?
Yeah, that is a big thing to unpack there. And keep in mind, reentry is different. There's everyday reentry where people who have gone into the system and they've done 2, 3, 4, 5 years.
Yeah,
That reentry is a lot different than somebody who did 25, 30, 40, 50 years.
yeah, yeah,
I remember when I got out, I went in at 1989, the internet, iPhones, smartphones, so much was not around.
yeah,
And to come back into this, it's wild. And,
yeah,
I did the best I could to keep up and educate myself while I was inside taking computer courses and always studying and reading, but you can only learn so much through book work. You need some hands-on, and I can't tell you how long it took me standing watching over people's shoulder as they do the kiosks at it, whether it be a McDonald's or checkout or hey, it's embarrassing.
yeah.
As you know, we don't like to ask for help because the first time I tried to pay with Apple Pay. I, and the young guy behind the counter, he was like, he was getting frustrated, and the lady that was trying to help me, he finally grabbed my phone and he looked, you gotta double click the button, and he looked at me like I was stupid.
Right. Has no idea.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a tough thing, but there are some phenomenal programs, not just reentry housing and employment. And my best friend runs the Louisiana Parole Project. Uh, they've they've helped over 650. I don't know what the number is now of people who served extreme sentences.
Mhm.
They have I see them as the best reentry model in the country,
Yeah.
and they do everything from teaching these guys basics of using your cell phones, your debit cards, how to navigate social media, avoid the scams and the viruses and everything. They help them with transitional housing, and clients can graduate into more long-term housing. It's a full wraparound support that really not only teaches and guides, but monitors and makes sure that they're really getting settled, getting established, finding independence, and, you know, not to knock any other jurisdictions or programs, but sometimes these reentry programs are just like, "Oh, this is how you do it. This here's your file. Good luck."
Yeah, yeah, makes me think
It
of, like, some professors, they'll just give you the syllabus and give you, the website and say, "Do the work, and see you
Yeah.
next semester."
And the other thing I like seeing is there's a growing movement of restorative justice
Good.
work.
Yes, yes. That
Uh,
continues
yeah,
that continues to grow, and I think we really need it. And when we think about that word restore, to bring back,
yeah.
to what it originally was or to make it better, I think we really need that, especially in the groups of people that we represent, but even just I think our whole society really needs to be restored, you know. But hey, man, we're coming up near the end. So before we go, I want to make sure that folks know who you are and where they can reach you if they like to reach you for anything. Maybe you can shout that out, some information.
Yeah, well, a couple things that I would like to present here is, well, first, if you would like to reach out and connect with me on just to talk more or collaborate or work, my email address is bwidenhouse. That's BWIDENHOUSE @fam.org, or you can just Google fam.org and it'll take you to the FAM website, and you'll be able to find my contact information there on our um, staff portion on the website. But the other thing that I would like to offer or present to people is in my work with the National Life Without Parole Leadership Council is we have a speakers bureau of
Mm,
several former lifers
mm,
who give presentations to colleges, universities, podcasts, conferences, all these different things to give and educate people about the experience of receiving a life sentence, choosing following their individual paths of redemption and restoration, and how they navigate, back into the community. If anyone's interested, particularly college, universities, professors, and classes, again, you can reach out to me, and we would love to present the students or clubs, organizations to hear directly more about what's truly going on, what truly can happen.
mhm.
As we talked about throughout this program, the public has this perception of crime, punishment, people who went to prison, and
Misperception.
and it's misperception. It's not accurate. So let's have the conversations.
Right on.
Let's 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 not base our decisions on headlines and sound bites. Let's have real honest conversations and then see if we can't take what we learn from each other, what we can agree on, what kind of system that we want to have, what kind of results we want to get from our system, and what can we do to move towards that and not keep doing the same thing over and over that we've been doing for 50 years.
Right on.
It's not getting us anywhere.
Conversation. Yeah, so through conversation, I think we can definitely get closer to our goals because we all have like very similar goals. And so, with that, man, I'm gonna say this is a wrap for now. But I look forward to maybe bringing you back on this platform if you so agree, and we'll do a part two.
Nice.
Yeah, and so with that, man, again, thanks for your time, thanks for your attention, thanks for your expertise, and I'll be following up with you soon.
Sure. And thank you for getting this out to the public. It's all about conversations.
Absolutely, brother. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too. Peace.
Hey y'all, thanks for hanging out with me for another episode of the Prison to Promise podcast. If you or someone you know would like to share their Prison to Promise story on this platform, please hit me up at drcraigwaleed@gmail.com. I'll spell it for you. That's DrCraigWaleed at gmail.com. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share.